going around corners, throwing bundles out the door to carriers. I managed to live. It was a good thing. I didn't fall out. You had to make sure you didn't fall out. One day we were delivering down around here in Bridgeport, actually, and my driver, Brian, saw a hitchhiker on the side of the road. Now, this is back when they still had the drive-in and the country-ish part down here on the bridge. And he decided he was going to pick up his hitchhiker. And the hitchhiker's name is Frank Groff. He's better known as the General. He just lived over here. Well, Brian picked up the General and he took over my door spot. He got to hold on to this thing and I had to go back to the truck. Well, the General had been picking bottles up out of the cornfields and that, and the farmers had just sprayed some really aromatic juices on the field. So the wind was coming in, blowing it over the General and we got back to the truck. I couldn't breathe. Luckily, we dropped him off, opened the doors, and aired the truck out. I think I had to burn my clothes when I got home. That was the start. Now, a few years later, we're going to move on a little bit, and I got a part-time job in the mailroom at Queen Street with my cat. She actually hired me. He's over there somewhere. Where's that? Mike and Casey worked with that phone too. We would load the trucks and work the machines for the mailing and everything else. And then also the job came open in the circulation department after hours. And Paul Reinhardt and I were the guys on the phone, CSRs, I guess they were called. Got to answer all the complaints and missed papers. So I'd be sitting there, and all of a sudden, every night, this gentleman would come downstairs, he'd put his hat on, he'd head towards the door, he'd look over and he'd scowl at us. Didn't think much of this, but about 3 or 4 days later, I finally went, this is kind of it. I scowled back at him, and he kind of got this done look on his face and walked out the door. I said to Paul, who is that fellow? He goes, oh, that's Sandy Baird, he's a publisher. I managed to keep the job. I think he forgot about that, luckily, so I didn't lose my job or an employee like that. All right, where am I here? I wrote and printed stuff down. I don't remember. Scowling, Sandy Baird, got to keep my job. Well, okay, I was in high school at that time. So a few years later, I decided I needed a full-time job, and I went out and worked at Ellison Howard Union Electric for a number of years. Then my brother Bob, who worked at Circulation, he said there's an opening came up. A fellow named Carl Dean, really wonderful gentleman, he passed away, and they needed a new district manager. So I decided to apply for it. Now at this point, I was about 18 or so, 18, 19. I had hair down to here. So I decided, well, I better cut my hair. So I took 6 inches off. Went in to see Mr. Studi, Bill Studi, I always called him Mr. Studi. And the interview basically said, do you own a car? I said, yes. He said, do you have a tie? I said, yes. He said, you can start 2 weeks Monday. I went, yes. The good old days. That was all just the thing. So I lasted there for 34 years as at the record full-time. Actually, a total of 40-something with the part-time bit. I retired 7 years ago, and it was one of the best places I ever did work. And working for the Moats family was a wonderful experience. It changed as it went. Wasn't quite the same, but it was a great place to be. I retired in 2011 after 7 years, and I love coming to this thing and seeing all you people. We got to make sure everybody keeps coming to this every year. And I will mention one little thing. We do have a question. We do ask you to let us know by a certain date. Really work on that next year, will you? A lot of people try out. A little Stanley. We're not going to let Roz get up here and talk to Mike because she's. No, we're going to leave that alone. Now, does anybody else got anything silly to say or anything good to say or anything you can put in there in 5 minutes or so? Oh, no, you're censored. Okay, Casey, get up here. Oh, we're going to do it. Okay, we're going to do drawing. And what are we drawing for this time? Oh, what are we drawing for?
Just draw.
Okay. Rich Mills?
No. Rich Mills.
Beginner's luck.
It's an indigo.
Oh, thank you.
You want to draw one here for the other drawing? I do too.
Okay.
Who you got?
Well, it's somebody I don't know. Can I pick from somebody's
Yeah.
brownie point?
Cynthia Kurtz.
Oh, Cynthia's not here. Cynthia was coming. She emailed me just before I came over here. Her mom is very ill. She's been in University Hospital all day. She's having open heart surgery. So I said I'd put her name in, so I will make sure she gets it. Okay. All right. This could be scary. Oh, my beer.
Hi there, my name is Casey Philippines. You may know me, and some of you may not.
I started on Queen Street in 1971 in the mail room, flinging papers. And then when we moved to Fairway Road, I was able to get a job in the press room. And then I worked in various departments there until 1991, and I got a chance to go into teaching, which I did for another 25 years, and so I'm back here. But some of my best memories are the early days when we were in the press room. And there were lots of pranks going on at the time. I think I just got to back up for 1 minute and tell you how I got the job. I kept bugging Jim Nolan and Dave Smonica and a couple of others, and finally they said, okay, you can start. And so I started on June the 23rd. I got married on June the 30th, and I got a week off for a honeymoon. Can you imagine an employer like that? But when I got into the press room, we had lots of fun. Fred Grant was, if you remember, and this is kind of posthumously, I have to tell the story. Fred Grant's always been a great friend of mine, and he worked with me down in the roll room where we loaded the press with these one-ton rolls of newsprint. And Fred was always an eager guy to work, but he's always hungry. So it was like that, he would pack a big lunch. He'd take it down in the roll room and set it on top of the roll like that. And then when he wasn't looking, I put his lunch under one of the rolls. And he got under one end and I got under the other, and we rolled it on the little dolly, and I said, geez, Fred, I didn't know that you like pizza. He was scheming. Peter Rudad, if you remember Peter, he was a pressman and press foreman and went all through the ranks. And he was a guy that worked like crazy. He was always there first thing in the morning before anybody else, ready to go. But at the end of the day, he was ready to go. He had this routine where he would take his lunch pail and put it on the bench. So when it was quit time, all he had to do was just run over, grab his lunch pail, take off out the door. Well, when he wasn't looking, I screwed his lunch pail to the bench.
Thanks, Casey. That was good. Anybody else? Or? Dwight Storing is going to get up here and share a few thoughts.
Yeah. Wow, this is amazing. I'm a first timer. I can't believe it. It's so great to see all the people here. And I think I recognize so many people. But so I've got a few remarks here. And it's actually really a small book. It's not a lot. So I made some notes. And anybody who's seen me up close, you're probably wondering about my eye, the black eye. Well, Kathy did not hit me. And this is a true story. I was going to go out and do some video for a project I'm working on with House of Friendship. Put my camera bag down in the kitchen. I'm trying to, sort of get going really quickly. I catch my toe on the strap of the camera bag, careen across the kitchen, catch my other toe on the little lip going into the bathroom, and I go down on my shoulder, the glasses push up into my eye, and, I'm laying on the floor screaming. Kathy comes down, there's blood all over the place, but I survived. But, I think that the thing is when you get to the age that a lot of us are in this room, the really great thing is you get to do stuff that you wanted to do. Now, I know there's plenty of you in here who are saying, well, I know, Storing, you did just about everything you wanted to do anyway. And the difference is that the consequences are a lot less when you get older. You kind of do what you want to do. And so what I've decided to do is I've started to make a film, a documentary film about the guy who designed the railroad building. And his name was John Langwood. And I think the thing about the record building is this, is that we loved that building and we hated that building. I mean, it's just, it was freezing in the summertime and it was roasting in the wintertime. And, I think we loved it also because when you drive down Fairway Road, and you look at that building, it's sitting there, it's the symbol, I think, of something. It's kind of like going to your grandma's house. It just sort of gives you this sense of really belonging to the community. And so I've decided to do this film. And I think the thing that we most love about that building is that how deeply it connected to the place where we live. And so this film is about John Lingwood and a number of his buildings and about how his buildings actually connected us to the community and how we, the buildings might not be perfect, but this connection that we have to the community through these buildings is kind of what it's all about. So, if you want to hear Wayne McDonald talk about how the record building made the Record a better newspaper, if you want to hear Fred Kuntz talk about the infestation of flies in his office, enough said. Or if you want to hear Paul Mose tell you about the day how it felt to be standing on the ring road behind the Record the day that the building was demolished, you should come and see Finding John Lingwood. Tonight, I'm giving away 2 tickets in the draw for free admission to the screening of the film that will take place on Thursday, January 17th, 2019 at Princess Queen. And I also have with me tonight, I have some little cards here, and they have a lovely picture of the Record building at night because a lot of us drove up to that building at night and realized what it looked like. If you come and see me, you can have these promo cards, and they'll give you a couple of bucks off the ticket price when we have screenings in January. Thank you. That's what I've come to share. I'm going to make a draw for the 2 tickets right now. Whitney South. Whitney also gets to have a commemorative poster. You did, indeed. There you go. I hope to see you there. Please come and see me when you get back. You want me to draw one more?
Yeah.
No, that's
Okay.
okay. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, the mic's open for Gene. You wanted to say something? Gene McCarthy?
My voice goes up. Many of you in this room will remember the weekend of May 24th, 1974. It was brought to my attention with the recent 140-year supplement that the record had, when it said the river, like the river or something, the record runs through the region. That brought back memories of that day on Friday when the Grand River was flooding up north. And I was sent down to Bridgeport to see how things were in Bridgeport. And I got down there and I got across the river on the thing, and I'm trying to think of the water was starting to rise. And I got in the phone booth there. There were no cell phones, of course, in 1974. Got in the phone booth, dialed the desk, Bob Hooks was on rewrite. And I said, I think we've got a flood going here. And as I looked down, I felt water coming up my leg. And I could hear them in the background of the record. Oh, there's Gene, he's exaggerating again. I did manage to get a couple of pictures of one of the women, the residents being rescued by a boat and made the city edition. And but I got the hell out of there in a hurry back in the day, and sure enough, within about 5 minutes, the flood came down. But there's a kicker to the story. We went back to the office, and time marched on, and by noon hour, everybody got very thirsty, and it was a long weekend, and one of us headed for the bar, front club or whatever it was. And guess what? We forgot that the flood crest goes downstream. We picked up the paper the next day, or on the Saturday or something, and here's the famous spectator photo of the top standing there. We didn't get into golf for a long, long time. And we forgot all about this flood crest going downhill. So it was one of the more red-faced things. Was anybody at the record at the time, 74? Remember the flood? You were on the desk, I think, weren't you?
No, I was in the bar.
That's called leadership. Anyway, that's my story. I've often thought that was one of the best. We got scooped, and we got scooped badly. But we learned a lesson, and from then on, every minor rainstorm arise in the rivers, we covered it. By the way, that story about the press reminded me that if you haven't seen the movie The Post or Spotlight, do take a look at them. They are two great movies about our business. Thank you for all coming, and it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Gino, for those interesting stories. So I've got a little thing to share here for you. It's kind of fitting that we should omit Marg Terrell's picture in the list of obits, because I have something here from Marg, and just a little preamble to this. I used to work on the desk at the record, and we used to have a saying, "The Lord will provide." You'd be staring at a blank page, layout page, with stories that were supposed to come in. We worked nights, waiting for these stories. We'd look at each other, "The Lord will provide." And then the Lord always did. So, anyway, I'm trying to think of something to say tonight, and drawing a blank. 34 years in the record, I should be able to come up with something. So at our last meeting, committee meeting before this dinner, Paul South brought in something, it's kind of odd, but a neighbor of Marg Terrell's, Marg died earlier this year, sadly, at the age of 83. So a neighbor of Marg's brought something over to Paul and dropped it in his mailbox or something that Marg had written. So Paul brought it to the meeting, and we're sitting around, and Paul just hands it to me. So I open it up, and I start looking at this, and I think, wow, this is interesting. I think I found out what I want to say. So this was written by Marg when she retired at the record in 1996. I was actually there when she said the speech, but I'd forgotten about it. Anyway, I won't read the whole thing, but here's an interesting little snippet, because it's kind of some record of the past. So, Marg started at the record in 1968. So, as most of you know, I started out in what was then known as the Women's Department. I was hired by Frances Denny, and we had a close-knit department. I was hired as the fashion and features writer, even though I didn't know a frill from a flounce. But I learned on the job as I attended fashion shows locally and in Toronto and Montreal, and met with famous designers. In those days, the record had money to send reporters out of the city once in a while and pay their expenses. Frances was a real news junkie, and she made sure we were on the periphery of every major news event in the Twin Cities. I remember prior to provincial or federal elections, we used to hit the major downtown hotels in search of expert political views from the local clientele. We may not have gotten views that were printable, or in some cases even intelligible, but we did soak up the mood of the city. And working for Francis gave me the opportunity to write features which won WONA awards. This is Western Ontario Newspaper Awards. One 3-part series on battered wives won the trophy for women's feature writing and gave impetus to the establishment of a shelter for battered wives and children in Kitchener. For that series, I traveled to Toronto, London, and Stratford. She also sent me to cover an Ontario Sports Writers and Sportscasters dinner in Toronto, the first year the sponsors allowed women to attend. I went with our sports department staff, and we traveled in a limo arranged by a press club member. It was quite a day, but I soon discovered I was the only record staff member doing any work. And I didn't know one sports celebrity from the other. At a press conference with these celebrities, Skip Johns escorted me in, and then promptly left me in the lurch to go back to the hotel room, which the sports department had booked for the day. I decided to tag along with a couple of Toronto sports writers, since they knew who these celebrities were. Unfortunately, most of the sports celebrities were real gentlemen who gave me the opportunity to ask questions first. What a disaster that was. And it's all Skippy's fault. It was also the event at which our host wanted me to introduce him to the then Premier Bill Davis. That turned out to be the second disaster. The bon vivant, who had spent the day elbow bending and was none too steady on his feet, accidentally spilled his drink all over Davis's suit. At that point, I was hoping the floor would open and swallow me. But Davis was very gracious and refused the clod's offer to pay his cleaning bill. After the dinner, we headed back to Kitchener in our limo, but our host convinced us we should have a nightcap at the press club before going home. We closed the bar at about 2 a.m. I can imagine Mark. I can. The next day I slept in. I had to write a story on the event for that day's paper. The Record was an afternoon paper then. So I got a cab and started writing it in pen while traveling into work. When I got there, I banged away on my typewriter. This was before the Record became computerized. Non-stop until deadline, while Francis quickly edited each tape. The story did run that day, and even went on to win an honorable mention in the humorous writing category. Although I'm not sure if it was the story that won or my letter explaining the problems I had getting it. That's it from Mark. Would anyone else like to share a memory? Sandy back there. Sharon Murtaugh.
Hello, everybody. So I grew up, I'm actually stuck in Generation Record. My dad worked at the Record for a number of years. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was the Lowe's, the Murtaughs, and the Brookses.
Right.
That moved from the Hamilton Spectator to the Record in Kitchener. They rented a triplex, one family on each floor. So I grew up with lots of record stories. I remember the storm of 77? I remember my dad couldn't make it home from work, but he could make it across the road to the mall because there was a liquor store in there. He made it home the next morning, still smelling a little bit like alcohol. But I remember Casey talking about all the pranks that happened, and there were so many stories that he used to tell when we were little, and I always wondered, my dad always had a hole in his shirt, right there. And I remember being little, and I said to him one day, I said, Dad, why do you have a hole? And he said, oh, I can't tell you that. It happens at work. And I thought, well, what is it? He said, oh, I can't tell you that. He did that for years, couldn't tell me what this hole was. So then I got to go on a tour of the record. And I went into the press room, the old 3-story press room, and I saw my dad before he saw me, and my dad was left-handed. And he was sneaking a smoke. And he was holding it behind his back, so he wouldn't get caught. And I went, that's for those holes. So I told my mom, and he got in trouble for smoking at work. But I started at the record, I think I was 14. I believe Karen Hartung was my very first boss there. Started at 14, and then I was part-time in the coffee shop and working in classified. I was there 6 months shy, 20 years when I left. But I still think of it as my family. And I have my friend Julie, who also worked at the record, and we actually celebrated our 30th anniversary Girls Cottage weekend this past year. All girls from the record, and it truly is something. That's all I wanted to do.
Sandy, did you want to come? You have to do it wrong.
You've been there 100 years, you got stories.